So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be working on those 8 components. We're going to be looking at those 8 components and seeing what is it that we know about it, where is there still some confusion, okay? So the bottom of the page, right? I just gave you the teacher look like. They're not following, but it's okay. It's okay. So the bottom of the page, right, is empty. Okay. So if you can draw a line, because on the bottom of the page, I'm going to give you some cards right now, and you're going to do a card sort. Okay. We're going to go through those 8 components. The titles of those 8. I want you to put the titles at the bottom. At the top of the thing. Are you guys familiar with thinking maps or tree maps? Yes. Okay, great. Because I was thinking about that. We're a thinking map district. I love thinking maps. Okay, because I think they're awesome. So it's a title at the top of your map is going to be 8 SIOP components. Okay, then the branches are going to be the titles of the 8 components. Okay, then what you guys are going to have to do is together, you're going to be sorting those cards, and I want you to put the descriptions underneath the SIOP component that you think it best goes under. I want you to move them, think about it, look at it, come to a consensus, and once you guys have agreed, then I will give you a glue stick, or you have glue stick, then you glue them down. Okay? No gluing until you guys have come to a consensus amongst your group as to, yeah, this looks pretty good. Do we agree? Got it. Let me get your paper. Table, I only had to make it 1 time. Okay? And we've already used it. 1 for card sort. We moved it. We cut it. Move it here. 2, we use it. You could glue it down and actually make a graphic organizer with it or a thinking map with it. 3, cooperative learning. And it's just 1 document. Okay? But I think I could get a big bang for my buck from this 1 little thing. Okay? Then just save it and that's it. So what's awesome is that you guys were learning about something that maybe would not have been that interesting. Right? Right? Like we're going to learn about the SIOP model today. Okay? But you cut me out of the picture, and then it's about you guys. It's not a teacher-centered place. Your classroom is not supposed to be always teacher-centered. It's not about me. I already know it. Okay? It's about you and giving you the time to practice it, to say it, to repeat it, to help somebody else. Okay? So I love it. Yes, sir.
You know what? I have a question on this one. I'm picturing a classroom. If you have a student which is struggling with the language barrier, of course, how are they going to be able to interact with someone who speaks the language?
Okay, that's a good question. When I did this is for adults, right? So some of these were very long, right? Like provide sufficient wait time for student. Okay, some of these were very long, but you're capable of doing that, so then I did it. But if it's in my classroom with younger students, then I have to think of another way to say that. That they're going to either, 1, be able to understand the vocabulary being used. That's a big component, is make the language accessible. So I need to pick the appropriate language, but what's an advantage that you can have, that you can do? You could give it like in a more simplistic way of saying it, and then increase the rigor there, and have several different ways, again, to say the same thing, just with a little bit more sophisticated words. Okay? And because the kids have it there, then 1, they're practicing reading. 2, they're going to say those words that they would never say. They would never say that outside of being in your room. Kids aren't going to, well, I found it very relevant today that I don't hear teenagers talking in the hallway like that. I wish, but they're not. Right? We don't really talk that way. I mean, if you listen to the conversations you guys are having at the table, it's not, well, I find this a very interesting approach. I don't know if it's very relevant. However, I find it a little simplistic. Let's try to increase the rigor. We don't talk that way, okay? So kids won't either. So this is where we could give them that kind of scaffolding. I had a little bit of a weird thing with scaffolding when I first heard about it, because it didn't make the connection with me. I guess when I first heard it, it didn't connect to prior knowledge. It just seemed like everyone was saying this word scaffolding. Like, we need to scaffold. Everyone, we need to scaffold. And I'm like, yes, we need to scaffold. I don't know what the heck. I just knew that was a word I needed to use, that we were going to scaffold. And I didn't really understand what that meant until one day I had a little bit it connected, where I don't know what I came across. It was a picture. It was a picture of scaffolding, like on a building. I think it was actually one of her things I was looking up. And they were talking about how the purpose of scaffolding is to allow the student to construct their own thinking, but then to remove it, right? Scaffolding doesn't stay on a building forever. That would be a really funky looking building, right? The purpose of scaffolding when they put it on the building is to work as your building, right? As the painters are working up on the higher levels, they have to put scaffolding on there to get them there. But once they get there and they've painted that, the scaffolding is removed. Okay? So the same thing happens in the classroom when I finally had that epiphany. Like, this is what they're talking about. Okay? Whereas, you could provide scaffolding with vocabulary. Like, we're going to work our way up there. I'm going to give you some kind of card. You're going to read it. We're going to work on it. But will you always have that card? And will you always have my definition? No. Eventually, I'm going to take that away from you, and you're going to come up. Because hopefully you've constructed your own thinking. When I finally figured that out, I was like, now I feel, scaffolding. Now I know what that is. I got it. We're going to scaffold today. And so it didn't make sense to me. So to each their own. Like, everyone's constructing their own learning, and again, if you're not connecting it to something, then for me, and I think I'm a pretty good learner. Like, I figured out what works for me. That didn't work. That was just somewhere abstract floating, not connected to anything, until I finally had that visual to connect it to. And so if I need that, the kids need that. Okay, so there was a few things that I observed as you guys were doing this inside-outside circle, which were I think great opportunities to take advantage of in the classroom. One of them is some of you guys were asking me if you could take your notes with you. And I thought it was awesome. Think of this happening in your classroom, like kids doing this. Miss, can we use or them taking their notes, or having some kind of guide or some kind of graphic organizer that holds your thinking, right? So then, because we're processing, we're learning. This is not like I already know this already, okay? I'm learning it, I'm constructing that. So then you can have your notes with you. I had a videotape my class one time, and as the kids were doing this, and what I thought was awesome is that they kept referring, I was like, what are they looking at, right? They were looking at the word wall. They were looking at the word wall, and I kept noticing, like, the kids kept looking and turning, and I'm like, what's going on? Either one, there's a very attractive person over there and I don't know, or two, there's something happening. And finally, they're looking at the word wall. And in my word wall, I like to have visuals on the word wall. So what were they doing? They were looking and connecting, and they're like, okay. So this is where if you have a good, I don't like to say good, a working word wall. What happens a lot of the times is that people put word walls and they're like, I'm going to put these words up here. And then they stay up there for the whole semester. And they're like, I complied, I have a word wall, leave me alone, right? But really, is that really what's supposed to be happening? Not really. It's supposed to be for the kids, it's not for the principal, right? The purpose of the objective on the board is not for the principal, it's for the kids. But we do all that because the principal's going to come in here and look for the objective, and they're going to look to see if you have a word wall and if you're following district initiatives. But really, the purpose of that is for the kids. So I really like that. What would we do with something like this? Something easy. Take the answers out. Okay, so I should have given you a quiz, but I did not. And I was telling her, I walked over there, man, I should have done a quiz. But what would I do? When you got back to your original partners, I would hand these out and just have you guys spread, and then you guys would sit there and go, no, that's not comprehensible input, and you guys are talking about that. Okay? So that's why I really love this. I really love that strategy, and it's something very easy to do. So do you guys have any questions for me about that? Am I going to hear crickets? No questions? Nobody?
So this covered strategies and interaction, right?
Mm-hmm. So that whole thing where you guys were like, what is this? We did several things right now, right? Comprehensible input, right? We did strategies, we did interaction, and in right? In one shot, we're able to hit a lot of things. Again, we have a limited amount of time in the classroom. I only have my kids for 48 minutes. I want to get the biggest bang for my buck. So I like something like that.